Hello and welcome to the Talk Football Podcast. It's me, your host, Hodgie, and we are back for episode 11. I think it's 11. I'm pretty sure it's 11. I probably should have checked before I started. Anyway, we're back, and I apologise for not being putting an episode out sooner. With the work times that I've had recently, it's just not been conducive to record anything and get it up for you. But today we are doing a sort of semi-live, so albeit we're not live on YouTube, we are live on TikTok, and the video from TikTok will then go up onto the YouTube a bit later on, as well as obviously the audio that I'm recording currently as we speak. So this is my all-time Chelsea at 11. I've not included players going back into like 60s and 70s and stuff like that, so I've kind of kept it to my era of going to watch Chelsea, and so that my team reflects that. Now, it's taken me a couple of days to really get it nailed down, because every time I think about a player, I think about another one. But I finally managed to settle on a team. And I know some Chelsea fans will probably disagree with my options. But that's the beauty of football. It's all about opinion. And one person's opinion is obviously going to be completely different from someone else's. Like I say, this is going out live on TikTok, so there is a TikTok live chat, and if people do ask questions, then I will respond to those as long as it's appropriate for the team that I am, for the podcast that I'm recording. So yeah, and obviously it's about all-time 11s. Now, I did put it out on a video earlier for people to send in their teams. Apologies that I didn't give you more time to think about it, because it's not easy to pick just 11. And but I have got how many we got to go through. So after I've done mine, we're going to have Adam with a Derby, Scott with a Liverpool, Alex with a Leeds, my housemate and landlord Steve with his Villa, a good friend of mine who I play on Xbox, another Steve with the Spurs, and then we've got an Andy Reid double. So we have an Andy Reid Junior and Andy Reid Senior, with Manchester United for Junior and Chelsea. So it gives another perspective on Chelsea. Andy Reid Senior, his dad. So obviously we've got players going back considerably further than mine. All right. So anyway, I'm going to crack off with mine. In goal, I don't think there'll be many disagreements with this. I've gone with Petr Cech. Do we need to say anything about Petr Cech? I mean, he's a phenomenal servant for the club, and just, consistency, so much consistency down the years. So I think there's no arguments there. In the defence, I've gone with John Terry, Carvalho, Azpilicueta, and Joe Cole. I think Joe Cole, that's pretty much a gimme for anyone of my kind of age and era. Joe Cole was obviously phenomenal for us. JT the same, captain, leader, legend. So that pretty much goes without saying. It's with Carvalho and Azpilicueta is where I kind of got a little bit twisted up, because there was others that obviously I'd thought about, and I really wanted to put Ivanovic in there, because I think he was just incredible. In the seasons under like Mourinho, etc., and he ended up playing at right back quite a bit. But versatile enough that he could play obviously at centre half, because that's predominantly what his position was. But he was phenomenal at right back, so it was a really difficult one to leave him out. But I went with Azpilicueta, because obviously what a servant and what a leader for the last few years as well for the club. So I've gone with him in kind of like the right back slot, if you like, over Ivanovic. And Carvalho, I just really loved Carvalho, and I could have gone. There was other like centre halves I looked at. I mean, obviously Desai being one, but and obviously recently Thiago Silva playing as well as he has done, albeit in a struggling team the last couple of years anyway. But I went with Carvalho because I just really rate him as a defender. He was probably one of the best centre halves I've seen at the dark arts of defending. As a central defender, a phenomenal, just really got under the skin of strikers, and he was a good player as well. He's really good on the ball. So that was my choices in defence. My midfield, so many midfielders that I could have gone with, but I've gone with my personal favourites at the time. So I've gone with Essien, Makelele, and Frank Lampard. I think obviously Frank Lampard speaks for itself. I don't really need to. I don't really need to go into too much detail on why I've picked Frank. You know, clubs leading, all-time goal scorer, etc. I went with Essien, and I know he had a lot of injuries in his time at Chelsea, but for me, he was just everything you would want in a midfielder. He could pass, he could nick a few goals here and there, a real leader on the pitch. And Makelele kind of defined that central defensive midfield position. People would refer to it as the Makelele position, and every team at the time, and probably still do, needs someone like a Makelele. So that's why I've gone with those. Now in the forward areas, one of my favourite players that I'd watched, and I had the privilege to watching at Chelsea and at the Bridge and at away games or whatever, Gianfranco Zola, and I was fortunate to have met Zola a couple of times. So yeah, just an absolute gentleman and just a wonderful player. The goal that always sticks in my memory is the backheel goal against Norwich. Phenomenal player, great skill. So I went with him. Alongside him is like in an attacking midfield sense, I've gone with Eden Hazard. Just one of my favourite players to ever grace the blue shirt of Chelsea. Has never really gone on to get any kind of form or recreate what he did at Chelsea at Real Madrid, and I feel really sorry for him for that, because obviously Madrid was a dream move for him. But just an absolute superstar for Chelsea, and I'm sure Spurs fans when he left were quite pleased to see the back of Eden Hazard. Phenomenal player, great skill, great character to have around the club and have around the dressing room. And, we've tried to replace that type of player many, many times and failed many, many times. I don't think you can. Now, up front, there was a few options I looked at, but in my time, without question for me, Didier Drogba. And I don't really need to go into too many details of what made Didier Drogba a great striker. Just a phenomenal player to watch. And even in his first season, he had a bit of a struggle. Took him time to settle into the Premier League. But my God, when he got going, what a player. An absolute phenomenal striker. Had everything. Could run, could beat players, could score from distance. Great poacher in the box. Phenomenal aerial ability. The guy just had everything. Great at winding the defenders up again as well, getting cheap free kicks in and around the box, and with the creative players that we had, it was just a phenomenal player to watch. So that's my 11. So check Cole, Terry Cavallo, Azpilicueta, Essien, Makelele, Lampard, Zola, Hazard, Drogba. Like I say, there were players that I could have easily have got in here as well. So we'll give some honourable mentions. Ivanovic, Desai, Kante, Fabregas, Diego Costa, Joe Cole, Juan Mata. And you can see why it ends up being quite difficult to pick just 11. It's very difficult, and even now I still ponder over some of the decisions I've made. I'm like, and then I think of someone else, but that's what I went with, so I'm quite happy with that. Right, so I'm going to move on to people that have submitted their teams as well, and I'll start with my good friend. He's been on the show a few times, and we do need to get him on to have a bit of a Derby County catch up, because a lot has happened in the last sort of year or so. But this is his Derby selection, and yet again it reflects the times that he's been able to go and watch Derby, and he goes and watches quite regular, and obviously recently I was up in Derby, so I've been to Pride Park a few times as well. So he's gone with Poom in goal, and he's got Larson, Carbonari, Stimac and Wright, Commons, Carsley, Aranio, Kinkladze, One Chop and Ravanelli. Quite familiar with all those names, players that I've seen obviously play. It's always remember the One Chop goal against Manchester United. So that was a good player. Ravanelli obviously had his time at Middlesbrough as well. Georgie Kinkladze, one of the most skillful players that I've seen play as well. It was great to watch, King Cladsley. So that was Adam's team. And then moving on, we have a friend of mine who I work with, Scott, who's a Liverpool fan. So this is his Liverpool 11. He's gone with Alisson in goal, Sami Hyypiä, Hansen, Virgil van Dijk, John Barnes, Souness, Gerrard, Salah. And how about this for a front three? Tasty or what? Dalglish, Suarez and Rush. I mean, that front three. What can I say about that? I mean, that front three has a little bit of everything about it, doesn't it? Hold up play and running in behind of Rush, the skill and finishing ability of Suarez and Dalglish. Just, what a player Kenny Dalglish was. So anyone that had the privilege of growing up watching Kenny Dalglish, then his midfield as well. Souness and Gerrard. I mean, solid as. That's solid. And then you've got the skill, the pace and finishing ability of Salah and Barnes on the wing. So, and then solid at the back as well. So yeah, that's a great lineup. Then we go on to Alex, who's a Leeds fan. He submitted his one via the TikTok video. So he's gone with Nigel Martin in goal, Gary Kelly, Jack Charlton, Hunter, Hart and Gray. Then we've gone Bremner, McAllister, a modern one, which is thrown me off a little bit of a curveball, Rafinha. And then he's gone with Lorimer and Clark up front. I mean, Gary Kelly, I really actually liked Gary Kelly as a fullback. I think he, even at his time, and even now, I do believe Gary Kelly would fit into the format of the modern day fullback, because he used to get forward quite a bit. It goes without saying, Ian Hart, dead ball specialist, great left back as well. And then you've got the creativity of the likes of McAllister, who I really enjoyed playing, went on to obviously play for Liverpool as well. Rafinha was a little bit of one that threw me a curveball, because he was really good for Leeds. He's been a bit in and out with Barcelona, so yeah. And then Lorimer and Clark, classic front two, that would work. So that's Leeds. Now I've got my housemate, stroke landlord, Steve, and albeit he's a Swansea fan, he's always grown up watching Villa. So he's given me a Villa one. And he actually submitted 2 11s, which was an 11 of honourable mentions as well. But I'm going to go with his first choice. And we'll just go with those. So we've got Spink in goal, Delaney, McGrath, Echiog. I mean, what a partnership that would have been. Stevie Staunton at left back, absolute powerhouse of a left foot. And then in midfield, you've got Merson, Cowans, Mortimer and Young. Paul Merson, big fan of Paul Merson, always have been. Recent documentary on him, bit of a hard watch, but I wish Paul Merson all the best, and what a privilege of a player he was to watch. Cowan solid in midfield, and Mortimer, and then Ashley Young. And ironically, I'm currently watching the Chelsea Everton game above me, and Young was starting and playing in that, so still going. Quality player he was for Aston Villa. Obviously moved on to Manchester United, so it had a relatively successful period with United, so great player. Peter With, great striker, proper target man. And Dwight York, what a phenomenal player he was. Played with a smile on his face. Great for Aston Villa. Went on to, do ridiculous things with Man United. Partnered up front with Andy Cole, including the 99 treble. So that's a great team. Now, good friend of mine, Steve, who I play on Xbox with, he submitted me his Spurs team. And there's quite a few sort of modernish times players in there. So we'll go with his. So we've got Lloris in goal, Kyle Walker, and Christian Ziege at fullbacks. And then what a partnership this is as well. Gary Mabbott and Ledley King. Good luck to any striker that would try and get past those two. Mabbott was... I remember a fair bit of Mabbott growing up and watching a bit of Spurs and whatnot, and yeah, great centre half. Ledley King, Jesus, I mean, if his knees would have held together, what a player he was already a great player anyway, but what a great player he could have been, an even greater player. And then his midfield, what a two these were. Modric and Dembele, both phenomenal on the ball. Dembele was just used to glide round the pitch, an absolute phenomenal player. Loved him. Modric, what a career he's gone on after Spurs. I mean, he was great at Spurs anyway, but to go on what he's done at Real Madrid, brilliant. And then his front sort of three attacking players, we've got Glenn Hoddle, David Ginola and Harry Kane. Harry Kane, obviously, club's leading all-time goal scorer. Gone on to have a great start to his career at Bayern Munich. Wish him all the best there. And, of course, we need a great, fit and firing Harry Kane to lead us in the European Championships for England. Ginola, love Ginola. Watching Ginola play at Newcastle, at Aston Villa and at Spurs, just great on the ball. Phenomenal running ability. Scored some unbelievable goals. Loved him. Glenn Hoddle, obviously being a Chelsea fan, great affection for Glenn Hoddle. It was under his management, obviously, player manager initially, and then under his management that we had the likes of our proper first foreign superstars start coming into Chelsea, and obviously started creating a way of playing that carried on right the way through, probably up until the end of the Mourinho eras, etc. So yeah, that's a great team. Now I'm going to move on finally to the Andy Reid Junior and Senior, and we'll start off with Andy Reid Junior first and his Manchester United team. Now, I only gave the guy like 2 hours to put this together, so fair play for him for because there's obviously there's so many players that he could have gone with. So we'll go with it. So we've got Peter Schmeichel in goal, Gary Neville, Rio Ferdinand and Vidic at the back, and Dennis Irwin. Dennis Irwin, just an absolute great fullback. Bearing in mind he weren't left-footed and he had a great career playing at left-back for Man United. And then midfield, just an absolute sexy midfield. So we got David Beckham, Roy Keane, Paul Scholes and Cristiano Ronaldo off the left. I mean, there's other players obviously down the years that could have gone in there. Some great players in midfield. You had the likes of Paul Ince, Andrei Kanchelskis could have played in midfield. Could have included Dwight York himself up front. But yeah, phenomenal. Some great players. I mean, so many you could choose from Man United. It's ridiculous. But his front two, he's gone with Rooney and Cole. Obviously, Rooney being the club's all-time leading goal scorer as well. And Andy Cole was just a phenomenal signing from Newcastle. And obviously, went on to do great things. Yet again, a treble winner. So that was Andy Reid Jr.'s Manchester United pick. Now we're going to go with his dad, Andy Reid Sr. And I didn't know he was a Chelsea fan, so I've left this one to last because obviously it wraps up this little all-time 11 pod perfectly for me. And obviously he's picked some players. I know obviously the players, but I went with players that I got to watch. So he's gone with Bonetti, McGreedy, John Terry and Paul Elliott. And Chopper, Ron Harris at the back. Bit surprised maybe he didn't throw Ashley Cole in there, but everyone's entitled to their opinions. Paul Elliott was a fantastic defender and would have had an even better career than he did had he not had the injuries he did. Moving into midfield, got Hudson, an absolute club legend. Got no arguments with that. Frank Lampard and Zola. That's his midfield, and that speaks for itself. And then the front three, it's just, again, everyone's entitled to their opinions, and I know, obviously why he's put him in there. But he's gone with Hazard, Kerry Dixon, and Jimmy Floyd Hasselbank. I love Jimmy Floyd Hasselbank, and he would have been relatively close to getting in my team, had we not had Drogba. Kerry Dixon, obviously. I growing up, I never got to see much of Kerry Dixon get to play, so I didn't really consider him. But obviously, club legend. But yeah, I love Jimmy Floyd, and then obviously, Eden Hazard as well. So that's a great lineup and phenomenal. And obviously, any Chelsea fans of a more senior nature will have their opinions as well on other players that could have got in there. But yeah. It's some good, interesting picks. So that's my all-time 11 for Chelsea, and obviously with some of our fans and listeners' selections for their clubs as well. This is something I'm going to carry on. So if anyone wants to actually come on as a guest So I'm going to try and get Paul on to do his Spurs 11. And hopefully, if we can arrange it, I'd like to get Alex on. Alex, the West Ham fan who come on the show before. I'd like to. I did drop him a text, but I know he was really busy today, so I wasn't able to get an 11 off of him. And yet again, so many players from West Ham that he could choose. So hopefully, I'm going to try and get Alex and Paul to come on actually and do it live on the show. We'll see if we can make that happen. And we're going to be back again with some more episodes coming up soon. I'm going to have a big rant about VAR because I think it's absolutely ruining the game. But we'll leave that for another pod. So thank you for joining me on this all-time 11 for Chelsea, for me, pod, episode 11 of the pod. And if you would like to be a guest on the show, get in contact on every where that you'll find, or you found this, you'll find a link for the link tree, which will get you to every aspect of ways to connect with the show. The easiest being just to comment on any of the videos, and or you can even do it the old-fashioned way. And I say old-fashioned because old-fashioned would be pen and paper, but we're talking about email, which is talkfootballpdc@gmail.com. So thank you for joining me on this episode, and we'll see you again very soon.